Yeah, I mean, the skincare world is something that I've definitely gotten more into, and I've learned a lot about estheticians and about my own skin, obviously.
Good.
And as I get older, I try to improve my routine, you know.
Good. Yes. Don't forget the toner. So, but what made you? This is your feature narrative debut because you have the doc. What made you want this, particular world story? What made you want this to be your jumping off point?
I think that I loved the sort of atmosphere of the script when I read it, and I loved the sort of world of Los Angeles. I grew up here in LA, and it felt very real and also very surreal at the same time. And I was really sort of smitten with that kind of the way that the city felt, and I think that I've always sort of wanted to make a noir, and this felt like a sort of a contemporary sunshine noir, and that's sort of what attracted me to it.
And we were talking earlier, but has this the noir genre always been something you've always wanted to explore, or is that kind of your steez?
Well, I like a lot of different stuff, but I think that growing up in LA, there's not a lot of history here. It seems like buildings are constantly being destroyed and replaced with glass boxes, and the way there is in other cities, and it feels like noir is this weird unofficial history of Los Angeles and has been since around World War II, and so it felt like this really truthful way that also is heightened and also has all the entertainment value of a movie that I like or a book that I like, while also interacting with the landscape in sort of a more authentic and sort of almost socio-political way.
And the cast is pretty stacked. One after the other. These talented actors. You have Elizabeth Banks, Angel Vergara. You have Pullman, who's having a big moment. Where when you kind of started developing this, did you have these actors in mind, or how did you go about kind of filling these spots in this world?
Definitely Elizabeth was the first choice from the beginning, and we just thought that there was no way that she would ever be interested in doing a movie that was this small, because she's such a massive actor and producer and director and is doing all these things, and it just didn't seem like she would ever want to do an independent film. And we sent her the script and she responded to it, and so then her and I had a Zoom, and then that's kind of kicked it off, and then everyone else kind of fell into place, and once she said yes, it sort of empowered us to go and ask all these people that I never, that felt like long shots, like MJ Rodriguez and Nathan Fillion, and then Louis Pullman had done a film with my producers on the film before, and he was, he read the script and we met up and talked about it, and I think that he brought so much to that role, and I think that it was it's one of my favorite performances in the film.
And with this feel, it's a real world, the esthetician skincare world, but when you were directing this, how did you kind of want to put your stamp on that world? How did you approach that world as a storyteller?
Well, I think it's interesting sort of making a movie that the aesthetic of the characters doesn't necessarily align with my own personal aesthetic, and so you sort of have to decide how you shoot this in a way that's interesting, and when someone's flipping through the channel that they maybe understand what kind of movie it is before they just change to the next channel. Because we were looking at a lot of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills in 2013 season 4, and Architectural Digest from that era, but we don't want it to look like any of those things. So it was sort of about trying to take influence from the movies and the photographs that I really loved, and sort of combine that with this world of beauty and skincare in Hollywood.
And I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm getting this off of Deadline, my old employer. Work. It said, I think this was announced in June 2023, correct? And you wrapped right before the strikes?
Yeah, days before the strike.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, days before the writer's strike, and then And then an actor strike, and then I was just.
And then it was a great summer, right?
Yeah.
But you wrapped, right before this, and and maybe that's for the better, but as it's an indie film, what do you think is the future for movies like skincare or, whatever an indie film is nowadays, or mid to low budget films? Like, what have you learned making this film, like, that you kind of will take with you, kind of to, kind of preserve almost indie filmmaking?
Honestly, it's such a weird, it's such an interesting question, because I feel like everything is shifting so much. Even when we started shooting this movie, I would never have imagined that this is what's happening now, that it's coming out August 16th, and it's coming out in as many theaters as it's coming out. And it didn't feel at all like the pathway for what we thought this movie was going to be like. We thought we were going to go to a festival and all this kind of stuff, and it just ended up being more like a studio movie in the way that it's being released. And I think that in a way that's exciting, that the movie like this is coming out in the summer, and it's coming out the same day as Alien Romulus, and I hope that,
counter-programming.
Yeah, that I mean, I'm going to see Alien Romulus, and maybe you'll do a double feature with skincare, I don't know, and I like that. I think that it's interesting that there's a demand. I think there's a demand for other movies, whether you like this movie or not, adult movies that aren't based on pre-existing IP and aren't part of a franchise,
Yeah. Look at that. You're starting a movement. I mean, I think that's what I personally loved about, this, and, as a, journalist, entertainment journalist, and just trying to find new stuff has been interesting, or people who take risks. When it comes to skincare, or the film, were there any big swings you took that you thought paid off?
I think that's TBD, but I think that...
Or in your mind, you think
it's the sort of thing that you're just thinking about for so long, and then you do it and you show up on the day. Like, we shot everything in Jordan's apartment on the last Friday of our first week, and we shot in 18 days, and so we shot it on day 5, and we've been shooting this, we've just been warming up, and then we shoot Hope and Jordan's final confrontation, and we shoot the scene when he's listening to Teenage Dream and working out and recording his self-help videos. And I remember being hidden in the closet watching the monitor, like, as Lewis was dancing, because we cleared the set, obviously, and he was in his Speedo and dancing and sort of improvising, and we have a version of that cut that goes on, of that scene that goes on for like 20 minutes. And
I'd like to see that.
It's great. And I walked into the other room, and I looked at everyone where the monitors were, and I looked at the producers and everyone we were working with, and they were like, is this the movie? And I said, yeah, I think this is the movie. And I'm happy that when we got to the edit and we got here, I really, that's how I still feel. I still feel like that is the movie.
Are you like a filmmaker who's like, once you release it, it's no longer yours? Is that kind of your vibe? Or you're like, oh, it's still mine, bitch?
I don't know. I think that definitely showing to an audience is the final part of a process for a filmmaker. I don't think something is complete until it's engaged with an audience, until you've shown it to people. So I think that it's been interesting, even in screening this movie 6 times or however many times it is, to see the way that different people are reacting and taking to it or not taking to it, and so I'm excited for that.
What are some? It's screened a handful of times, I'm guessing, for a specific audience. Are there any specific kind of reactions that stand out to you that you're like, oh whoa, didn't think that was coming?
I think I just like in the beginning when people are laughing in the beginning, I feel relieved, because I know that I want people to know that it's okay to laugh, and sometimes I was scared in the beginning that people wouldn't be aware, so we tried to make it really clear, like, it's okay if you laugh, it can be funny, while it's also scary and while it's also stressful. And I just like hearing people react. I was hiding in the back of the theater at the end, and when she bunts him in the face. I like hearing the audience go, wow.
Speaking of that, the movie is a lot. It's, you could see it as a true crime, or you could see it as a dark comedy. You could see it as a thriller. There's a lot, but beyond, the skincare esthetician part of it, and kind of going to the story of it all and these characters. How was there a scene? And I know you mentioned noir, but how did you want to approach it?
Well, I think that was, we always first and foremost thought it was a thriller. That was sort of the thing that had precedent. And obviously Elizabeth is such an incredible improviser, and she has a relationship with Louise, who she worked with Charlie's Angels on, and so they have a great shorthand. And Nathan Fillion, she has a really long-standing relationship with. They were in a movie called Slither together, and they may have even been roommates at a certain point. And they're really old friends, and so they would improvise together, and they would do these scenes that were so funny. But we, would have to sort of pull it back and make sure that it was never cutting the tension and the stress of the whole situation. It felt like, first and foremost, it had to be a psychodrama, and it had to be a thriller about people who are, in over their heads and really, compromising in tough situations.
And you've directed many a music video, correct? And there are a lot of these really amazing video music directors. There was Hype Williams. I mean, I'm of the era of the Hype Williams and
Sure.
the Joseph Kahns of it all. But how has music video directing? I feel like when I see someone who comes up as a music video director, there's a little bit of a spice on the movies that I'm like, okay. But how has making music videos, and you continue to still make them, help you kind of inform your way of making a feature?
I think in a really boring way, making music videos sort of just teaches you how to make your day, because you don't have enough money and you don't have enough time, and you have to make a whole video in a day, or usually, and if you don't get the video, it just sucks and you just look stupid. So I think that in a way, that's very similar to making an independent film, where everyone is scheduled so tightly, like a jigsaw puzzle, into this. We had to shoot Lewis out in the first 5 days or 6 days. We had to shoot MJ out in 3 days. We had to shoot Michaela out in something, or I said that, but Luis out, something similar. And so it was just, we had to get the whole story in 18 days. And I think that working with a DP and a production designer who had done a bunch of video stuff, everybody knew how to work fast and while not compromising, I think, some of the integrity of the image.
Wait, did you say you filmed this in 18 days?
Yeah.
Really? Was that fun?
Yeah, it was so fun. Yeah, we just got super stoked to do it, and got hyped up and just ran full speed at it. And then it's really fun when you get to work with actors like this, because you set up and you do all this prep, and prep is hell, because you're learning all the things that you dreamed about that can never happen, and you're making these compromises and trying to rebuild it and change the script so it has less locations and do all these kind of things. And then you show up and you get to shoot Elizabeth Banks, and she's making all these crazy decisions, and it's so exciting, and there's so much life to it, and it's true of all of them, and they start at such a high level that then it becomes really, really energizing. And then after a long day, I go home and I can't sleep because it was so exciting.
You mentioned before about LA. I mean, I personally don't like when people are like, it's the fifth character, that kind of energy. But I get it. But there was something for everyone who lives in it. There's something very LA about this. It's like, oh God, that kind of energy. And you said you kind of referenced the Housewives. What if you were kind of to make other stories about LA? Because you do, there are a lot of movies about the history of it, unless they're Hollywood history, right? But are there any other parts of kind of the LA subcultures or anything you want to explore, especially since you've kind of been born and raised here?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's sort of LA is so sprawling. It's kind of impossible to just for me to think of one right now. But I think with this movie, we really tried to focus on Hollywood and on like this, certain area of Sunset, into East Hollywood, middle Hollywood into East Hollywood. And I think that making a movie that really feels like a specific neighborhood in Los Angeles was something that I was really interested in doing, and making it feel like the neighborhood Hollywood and not the idea of Hollywood that when you say that in public or in another state or in another country, everybody sort of imagines everybody's rich and everybody's beautiful and nothing is wrong, and then
that's all true.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then you walk around actual Hollywood and you're like, this doesn't feel safe, And so that's sort of what I wanted this movie to be like.
Listen. No, I think you captured this interesting spirit of Hollywood, but after making this film, and I know the film has yet to come out, but after you wrapped, was there like a certain I know this is gonna sound corny, but what did you learn about yourself?
Geez, I think I'm still learning about myself.
What did you take away that kind of you didn't expect? There you go. That's a better. Come on, journalism.
Yeah, that I didn't. What did I take away that I didn't expect? I guess there were certain things that I underestimated. I thought production was going to be so hard, and it was. But I was excited to do it, and then I thought editing. I was like, oh, that'll be no problem. I just hang out on a couch and we just look at the movie and change things and get it better. And then it turns out that editing is like not at all like that, and it's not fun. And you sit there and you cut a scene for days and days, and you're pulling your hair out because at the end, the best that you get is you're like, I think it's better. I think it works better. And it's just me and Laura, the editor. So I think that what I learned is that next time I'll be prepared for the compromises of prep and the emotionally draining quality of editing and like sitting on a couch for 14 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, how do you kill your darlings when you're like watching this, and did this movie start off as something but then kind of shifted to something else that you weren't like, kind of things popped up, you're like, well, let me see what I did.
Well, we worked on the script for a really long time, and so I think that this was kind of always the idea. I think the actors brought a lot of new stuff to it and brought it to life in new ways that we could have never written on the page, but when we were editing it, we were really open to killing our darlings, because when we were editing it, we were just always being like, it has to be faster, it has to be faster, it has to be faster, it has to feel like a ride, and it has to be over before you know it, and so you're just kind of, gripping the edge of holding your seat because you're so stressed out about what's happening, and then it's over, and you sort of don't have a chance to catch your breath. So when the producers who had amazing creative feedback the whole time, when they would come in and they would say, oh, cut this scene, we would fight for a second and then cut it and realize, oh, definitely, keep it out.
Is there, we have time for, just one more question. Is there something you hope people walk away from this with, like a moral, the moral of the story?
I just hope people have a good time. I think that that's the thing that I want the most, is I hope that people get out of, I hope people get out of the heat in August and come to a movie theater and have a good time in the movie theater. That's what I really want.
Yeah, go to the movie theater. Actually pay for tickets too, not just free stuff. I'm a journalist, I go free, but I pay. Well, that's all the time we have, unfortunately. Thank you all for coming out. Austin, thank you. Spread the word, August 16th.